Which choice best describes the main purpose of the text? A study by Dr. Paul Hanel and colleagues concluded that people are more likely to behave politely when listening to ideas they disagree with if they think about values before they engage in a discussion. Study participants were assigned to one of two groups. The experimental group spent a few minutes writing about one of their personal values before they had a group discussion on a controversial topic, and the control group spent a few minutes writing about a drink, tea, milk, etc., before their group discussion on that topic. Hanel and colleagues found that the experimental group's discussion was more civil than the control group's discussion was. So option choice A says, to describe a widely held belief and how a study supports that belief. This is incorrect because in the text there is no widely held belief that is discussed. It simply begins by highlighting a study by a group of scientists and introduces how the conclusion of that study was that people are more likely to behave politely when listening to ideas they disagree with if they think about values before they engage in a discussion. So it begins with a conclusion, and then it goes into the study and the specifics of that study and how they arrived at that conclusion. So overall, A is incorrect because there is no widely held belief, and the study doesn't support that widely held belief. B. To argue that researchers were surprised by the results of a certain study. This is incorrect because nothing in the text mentions anything about how the researchers were surprised by the results of a certain study. It merely mentions the conclusion of that study and hides the particulars of that study. So B is incorrect. C. To suggest ways to improve a certain study's experimental design. This is incorrect because although the text does discuss the experimental design of the study, it doesn't suggest any ways to improve that experimental design. So C is incorrect. D. To explain a study's conclusion and how a research team arrived at that conclusion. This is the right answer because the text begins with the study's conclusion, which is that people are more likely to behave politely when listening to ideas they disagree with if they think about values before they engage in discussion. And then it introduces how the research team arrived at that conclusion by highlighting the study and how the participants were assigned to one of two groups. There was an experimental group that spent a few minutes writing about their personal values and then began the group discussion, and then a control group that spent a few minutes writing about a drink and then began their group discussion. So overall, D is the correct answer.